And onwards we go with the Premier League season, and as we're finding out, you can't predict damn anything because you just don't know what teams are going to do. And if you are a fantasy football league player like me, or someone that occasionally puts a bit of money on the football, it gets really frustrating. But on the flip side, over here, it's also really entertaining because, again, you sit down on a Saturday or a Sunday, sometimes a Friday, sometimes a Monday, you think, oh, this is definitely going to be 2-1, and then it ends up being 24-7. That traditional, always expected, stereotypical football score. If you've never joined us before, my name is Simon Miller. Welcome to What Culture Football. And what we do is we go through the Premier League weekend, we look at all the results, and we give the things we like an up, and we give the things we hate a down. We do it with these, the fingers of power, and you can look at your fingers. If there's like buzzing and lightning attached to them, you may have the gift as well. Let's up those downs. And we start with Arsenal Football Club like we usually do because, yes, I am an Arsenal fan, so I'm basically hijacking the show for my own agenda. That's something you can do when you are the host. Thank goodness they were able to come back to get a 2-2 draw with Tottenham at the Emirates because, man, at one point they were 2-0 down and I was freaking out, so of course that can get an up. That forward line still looks amazing. Unfortunately, transitioning into the next point, we have to give the Arsenal defence a down. Now, I understand the criticism, I understand the argument that maybe Arsenal should have spent all their money on their defence rather than buying players like Pepe, even though that was very exciting. But the real issue is, I was a bit of a fool because when we did go and buy David Luiz from Chelsea for only around about £8 million, which is nothing in today's market, I thought, maybe it's going to reinvigorate him, maybe he's going to become a better player, because while he has smashed it in the past, he's always shown at Chelsea he is just a little bit accountable, a little up for making a mistake. But it wasn't just him over the weekend, because Grant Xhaka was also doing the same. Sometimes you just want to shake your head and you want to go, what are you doing, guys? You're so good, you play such lovely football, but you're so leaky at the back. Although I will give a shout out to Bernd Leno. Bernd Leno made some incredible saves, even though you could argue he was at fault for the first goal. But look, if you're a Tottenham fan, you're probably happy with a 2-2 draw away from home. And if you're an Arsenal fan, given what was happening up until half-time, you are probably also pleased. But my word, those North London derbies are exhausting, much like we were saying in the intro. You just don't know what score they're going to be. But that front three, Pepe, Aubameyang, Lacazette, I love you like I love my own mother. You make me happy inside. We also have to give it up for Manchester City because, my word, they are back to decimating teams and they look absolutely fantastic as they kicked Brighton's ass 4-0. Aguero got 2 goals, which made me kick myself in my own ass because why did I put Marcus Rashford in my team, my fantasy team that is, when I could have put in Aguero? But honestly, if you haven't checked out highlights of Manchester City or even sat down to watch an entire game, they are just so good. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, I know you know this already, but how, when you're going for your 3rd Premier League title on the bounce, you can still have this drive and still have this motivation and still be just so lovely to watch? You got to shrug your shoulders and say, Pep Guardiola, you are one of the best managers of all time. As I have said before, I do believe they will win the Premier League. I also think Liverpool will run them close, and we'll talk about Jurgen Klopp's men in a minute. But 4-0 against Brighton, who had surprised us mostly since the opening weekend. They've looked quite good. Their football is now quite stylish as well. But my word, Manchester City and Liverpool are just so far out in front. Almost like the Premier League is broken. And yeah, talking about Liverpool, they kind of did exactly the same thing. They took on Burnley, who have not looked bad this season. Again, they were at the Emirates a couple of weeks ago, and they looked pretty good. When you come up against those guys, they just whip your ass. It was 3-0, Liverpool getting up 2. It makes me really intrigued and really excited to see what's going to happen where it is Liverpool versus Man City, because last season, that is kind of the fixture that summed everything up. Don't forget, Liverpool only lost 1 game, which was to the Blues, and yet they still couldn't win the Premier League. When I think about that, I don't know how Liverpool fans accept it. But hey, you can't say Manchester City didn't deserve it, because people forget this in football. The Premier League, like most sports, acts on a math-based system. So if you didn't win, it's because you didn't do enough. That's just the truth. There did seem to be a bit of dissension between Mane and Salah, with Mane saying that Salah is really selfish. I kind of like that, though, in football. I think you need passion, and I think you want to be desperate to score if you are leading somebody's line. But again, it's either going to be Manchester 1, Liverpool 2, or you switch it. In the comments below, let us know which way you think it's going to go. And if you write something stupid like Arsenal or Tottenham or Manchester United, What are you doing? Although I will say, when we turn our attention to the surprise package of a few years ago, Leicester, they got to get it up. They seem to be getting more and more momentum, and this week especially, Tielemans and Maddison looked like world-class players, to the point I bet Brendan Rodgers is like, oh man, next summer I'm going to have to go through the whole Harry Maguire thing again, but this time it's going to go for those two. Tielemans especially was an absolute steal at Leicester. He cost, what, like £45 million? And when we start to talk about the top six, which means, yes, one of what Chelsea and Tottenham and Arsenal and Manchester United could fall out of that, I would smash some money on Leicester getting in there. And somewhere deep down inside of me as well, I'm also like, why didn't Arsenal get Brendan Rodgers? He's a really good manager. And on that note, we've got to keep giving out the lug. We've got to turn our attentions to West Ham, who also have high hopes this season. They won 2-0. They getting it up. It was how they closed the game down against Norwich that really impressed me, because so far the Canaries have been doing all right. They've got a striker that can get goals, and they play to their strengths. But West Ham took their time. They picked them apart. And by the 90th minute, there was only one deserved winner, as we've already talked about with the math system, but that was the Hammers. Pellegrini just finally seems to have got his tactics and his strategy into his players' head. Once again, I'm not entirely sure where they could finish. I mean, you would guess it would be something like 7th or 8th, which would be a decent season, but they've spent a lot of money. Once again, they're slowly finding their feet. If I was anyone supporter of those top teams, other than Manchester City or Liverpool, you know what I'm talking about, I would just be looking behind me just a touch. When it comes to Frank Lampard's Chelsea, though, they are going to get it down, because they just seem to be taking one step forward and then taking 2 steps back. A shout out to Tammy Abrams here for getting a double and really starting to show what he's made of. But really, Chelsea had this game in the bag. They should have finished it off. But that's where we have to get our hands, put them together and say, well done, Sheffield United. Sheffield United, like Huddersfield from a couple of years ago, before Huddersfield became one of the worst teams we've seen in some time. Everybody had ruled out Sheffield United and said they were going to suck, but they play hard football, and they went to Stamford Bridge and got a 2-2 draw. And right now, if someone came in and put a gun to my head, as I always say, I'd be like, bro, calm down. I like talking about football, but I would argue they may not even get relegated. And again, you go back to early August, everybody thought Sheffield United were going to get relegated. And a team that almost did go down last year was Southampton, but they walked away from the weekend with a point against Manchester United. They're getting it up. The flip side to that, if you're a Manchester United fan, you're going to be really disappointed about that, and therefore United get it down. But that is mostly because they just can't seem to find themselves at the moment, and I just don't understand why they got rid of Alexis Sanchez. Now, as an Arsenal fan, I am biased, and that was one of the worst transfers we've seen for some time, especially because he was being paid from £400,000 a week to £500,000 a week. And today, at some point, sit down and imagine you earned that kind of money. Your brain will actually fall out of your head and walk away. But they do seem to be struggling to score a lot of goals. I think that Chelsea score at the early part of the season flattered them a little bit. So maybe if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had shown him more faith in him and gotten a bit more game time, Sanchez could have been a good other option, especially because during the Copa America for Chile, he looked really good. But now he's gone. He's gone to Inter Milan. And if I was a United fan, I'd be worried that if any of my forward line got injured, where are we going to go? And I respect Ole. He's focusing on the youth. I think that's awesome. I will always say, yes, let's do that. But right now, United look a bit like Chelsea. A bit of a worrying place. They need to find some results, and they need to find some results soon. And I'm going to give a massive up to Everton and Wolves for going out there and just saying, you know what? Screw having a defence. Let's just prove we can have a really fun game of football. Give it up. I mean, there were 3 goals within the first 12 minutes where it was Everton 2 and Wolves 1. And Wolves were even scoring goals in the latter part of the game. But again, we've got to shout out to Everton, who walk away with the 3 points. They won 3 goals to 2, and they fit into this Leicester-West Ham bracket. They spent so much cash in the summer, and Marco Silva does look like he is a pretty good manager. I mean, we've known that ever since he came across to England and took over at Hull City. I think they're another one you've got to get your magnifying glass and watch, because going through that team, it is just ridiculous. They have so many good players. Again, if you're like part of this upper echelon of the Premier League, you look at some of the individuals and you go, why didn't my team get that person? Because this area is weak, and now we ain't got nothing because the transfer window's closed. However, going back to a point we did make a few minutes ago, I do think we should give it down to the fact that, yes, we are probably going to see just another title race between Liverpool and Manchester City. And the reason I give it a down is when you go 3, 4, 5, 6, that's been the theme of this episode of Ups and Downs, it's really exciting and again makes you feel a bit sick if your team is in there because nobody is guaranteed Champions League football, and really this year, nobody is guaranteed Europa League football. It's the same when we start talking about who's going to get relegated. I mean, Norwich are in that bracket, Newcastle still, Sheffield United for some. I mean, there's a bunch of teams. When you talk about first and second, you are only allowed to argue two. Manchester City, Liverpool, Liverpool, Manchester City. Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola. You pick one, you pick Salah, or you pick Aguero, and then you wait until May next year, and then we find it out. And then maybe in the 2020-2021 season, we go, hey ho, let's do it again. It's not that big a criticism because they are lighting the Premier League on fire right now and creating a brand new rivalry in the process. And I suppose deep down, I just have those stupid thoughts. I'm like, oh, maybe this is going to be Arsenal's year, even though Arsenal's defence doesn't exist. I was about to make that joke when people go, I'd be better in defence than so-and-so. No, you wouldn't. When people write that on Twitter, you are not better than a professional football player, and that's why you are an accountant, which is a fine job, and I respect accountants. You do a good thing, but if you were good enough to be a pro football player, you wouldn't be an accountant, unless it's by choice, but I still don't believe you'd be better. Just saying. And that was another week of Premier League football. Obviously, next weekend we ain't got nothing going down because we have the international break, and that is a down. Because nobody enjoys not having Premier League football, even if you're the biggest England fan in the world or whoever you support, Ireland, Scotland, the world. Deep down, you're just like, man, I want Premier League football, but maybe we can have a rest. And when we come back in a fortnight, we'll get some crazy results. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about this weekend's football, especially when it comes to your team. Did they do well or do they suck? Like, share and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some sporting articles. And follow What Culture on Twitter at What Culture Football. My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you very much for joining me. And I will do your job for you in the comments. Simon, you're a bald Arsenal fan, and I'm very disappointed in you. But as you forget, I just watch football for fun. I watch football for lols, because football is fun, and football is full of lols. Go Gunners.